me some winners from this NFL draft, man.
Okay, well, what I wanted to do is I wanted to stay away from the obvious. I think
I'm with you.
obviously the
I'm with
Eagles
you.
probably you could say is number one. A lot of people can say I think the Texans were a winner as well, but I'm gonna go with some less than obvious picks. I'll start with the Steelers. Of course, I think they had probably one of the best picks in the draft, and that, of course, was Joey Porter Jr.
Of
We kind
course.
of knew once he started falling, like, oh, it's kind of lining up for the Steelers perfectly. We know about how he his dad played for the Steelers and
Yep.
everything. And on top of that, I do like how they got Broderick James. I think we all know the Steelers to be a defensive culture, and I think it was perfect that they got, of course, Broderick James as well as or well, he's not really, and I like the fact that they got Darnell Washington.
Very good pick.
I think
Our
that
tight end one coming into the draft.
yeah, I think you went 9-8 last year, and what you want to do is you want to give Kenny more options, and I think that you can run a double tight end with him and Pat. So I think that was a really good pick, and I'll stay in the same division. I'll say Baltimore.
Uh-huh.
Baltimore, I love the trade Zay Flowers pick,
Very
especially
much.
coming off the heels of Lamar Jackson getting his deal. We've heard Baltimore can't really get top receivers, so now you have Odell Beckham Jr. and I'm not going to say he's going to get back to 2015, but
Right.
if you can get
A lot
anywhere
to ask.
close, and then you still have Rashad Bateman coming back, now you have, of course, Mark Andrews and Flowers. I think that's perfect. And I think one of the sleeper picks of the draft, and it could be sneaky good, was Andrew Voorhees.
Yeah, he
Now,
was a good
yes,
one in the 7th round.
yeah, now yes, he is coming off he's recovering from ACL, but if he pops and if he becomes the player that, of course, Baltimore wants him to be,
Yeah.
he's good. He was good enough before the injury to be a first round pick. So
Right.
to get him at seventh, I think that was
Major steal.
that was major still. So right now, outside of the obvious, the
Yeah.
two winners that I'll say, because I'll of course we'll probably go back and forth, but the two winners I'll start with is Pittsburgh and Baltimore.
There we go. Yeah, definitely good ones there, and a couple that I had on my list as well. Of course, you mentioned the Eagles, the Texans, the Steelers, all the main ones. Trenton Simpson to the Ravens as well. That was actually my best linebacker in the draft, so thought that was a pretty good pickup as well. I
Mhm.
didn't know I would say this until I actually dug into everything, but I think the Seattle Seahawks are a winner from this draft. I think Witherspoon's a little bit of a reach at 5, but I mentioned that was kind of a Pete Carroll pick. I love
Mhm.
JSN. He kind of feels like a very young Tyler Lockett, very similar play style. Zach Carbonet in the draft. I know some might ask why would they do that with the Kenneth Walker, but the NFL is a league where you need two running backs, and it might not need to be two high-powered elite running backs, and I don't
Yeah.
think that's where Carbonet is going to come in. But with Kenneth Walker really being RB1, I think Carbonet is really going to help out in that backfield. And then they took Kenny McIntosh out of Georgia as well, just a little more insurance on that offensive side of the ball and with the running game as well. Some people have been mentioning the Cardinals, whether you're looking at the Paris Johnson pick, BJ Ojolari, which was great value, or Owen Papo, one
Mhm.
of the higher rated linebackers out of Auburn. I was definitely agreeing with that. When I looked into the Jags draft class as well, I think they stole Anton Harrison as a top O lineman. They get
Yeah,
a
they
top
was he
five
was
running
my
back.
top O line. Yeah.
Yeah, and the fact that he fell to 27, I thought maybe the Steelers would come in and pick him. Maybe one of the more offensive lineman needy teams, but nonetheless, he does fall, and that feels like a major steal for them. Tank Bigsby out of Auburn was a top 5 running back I had coming into this class, a top 5 corner as well, and I think
Mhm.
Antonio Johnson it was.
Yeah.
And then you've also got a lot of value in Miller, the linebacker, and then Strange, the tight end as well. The Bengals get Miles Murphy to fall to them,
Mhm.
and I know it's a lot of teams that I'm coming at here, but I really sat coming into the show and I was like, I really want to get a hold of this NFL draft because last year's was good, but I felt like this year's definitely presented a lot of talent. And I've seen a lot of people talking about there's a ton of winners. Did anyone really blow the draft? A lot more winners than losers here. And I just
Yeah.
got a lot of respect for the teams that I'm going through here. DJ Turner, Jordan Battle both go to the Bengals as well, along with Miles Murphy. You got top 3 players at each position, defensive end, safety, and corner, respectively. Of course, you talked about the Ravens. Love Zay Flowers.
Mhm.
OBJ is going to be interesting. Not really sure about how that's going to play out, but nonetheless, they do bring him in. It was an overpay. I called the Dalton Kincaid pick as well to the Bills. They're going to be another winner.
Yeah.
Um, it just felt like at the time they needed a lineman. They also needed a receiver, so they go a little 2-1. Maybe the
Mhm.
best no lineman in the draft and Osiris Torrance, and then you get a great linebacker in Dorian Williams out of Tulane. The Panthers get the best quarterback in the draft, a
Yeah.
great value wide receiver, and they get a top safety also. The Bears got a ton of value. I wasn't necessarily about Darnell Wright being
Mhm.
all the way up at number 9, but Roshan Johnson clearly had a solid outing and a solid, kind of number 2 role to Bijan, Tyreek Stevenson, and then Noah Sewell. Some people had Noah Sewell as the top linebacker in this class.
Yeah.
We saw the 2 that they signed. They get a value pick in him as well. Browns get a ton of value, whether you're talking about Tillman out of Tennessee. DeJuan Jones was a major faller to the Browns. I thought he was really going to go day one pick for sure. When day two came around and then he fell out of that, I believe, seeing DeJuan Jones go there, the center out of Ohio
Mm.
State as well, Luke Weipler, the Broncos. So the Broncos only had 4 picks, but you take a look at Denver's draft class. Marvin Mims out of Oklahoma, going to be good for us.
Yeah.
Drew Sanders, linebacker out of Arkansas, top guy in the class. Riley Moss, also a great pick for the cornerback out of Iowa as well. He was one of the top 5 to 7 corners in the class. And then J.L. Skinner, the safety out of Boise State. So you see some of that, not necessarily Sean Payton-esque moves, but some of that defense that's trickling in there, and they're going to need some weapons, of course, for Russ. Just a couple more here. I've got the Giants. I think they got a top 3 corner. They got a top center and a top wide receiver. It's crazy that they grabbed Jalen Hyatt as late as they did.
Yeah.
And then the Chargers as well. I think that they did reach with Quentin Johnston, but then they kind of balance it out with Darius Davis coming out of TCU. They get the edge out of USC, and then they pick up, some people said this was the best linebacker in the class, Day and Henley out of Washington State as the linebacker. So I know it was a ton of them there. Any that you want to push back on? You got some more that you want to bring forward? Like I said, a lot of winners I thought in this draft, but you just really had to look into the picks as they unfolded.
I do agree with you that there were more winners, and I think that what the draft what I noticed is teams built smart.
Yes.
Usually you see a lot of teams, they'll just pick the best players, but we did. That's why you saw a lot of people fall. They didn't. They built what their team needed. I don't remember if you said this, but I think the Patriots were a winner as well.
Mm,
Getting let me say winner as far as their first pick. I do like Christian Gonzalez,
agreed.
especially under Bill Belichick and that system. And they arguably, and they didn't get him in the third round, but they arguably got the best kicker in the draft. And we know kind of
Yeah.
how they struggled with. So I agree a lot of. I think the Cincinnati Bengals was a big winner as well. I do like the Giants draft, and I mean, if we want to go obvious, I like the Eagles. I think the Eagles blew it
Right.
out the park. Well, we'll probably talk about a little later, but the Eagles are just doing everything right,
Yep.
and I
Howie
think
Roseman truly working that magic.
yeah, I think Mina Kimes said it best. It's crazy how a team that just went to the Super Bowl also won the draft.
Yep.
Getting Jalen Carter, getting
Yep.
Nolan Smith. It
Crazy.
it's and Nolan, it's man, it's to me what you're seeing is teams are separating from the pack.
Yeah.
While yes, there was a lot more winners and losers, teams are separating from the pack, and a lot of my list is yours too. Uh, but I think the one that stand out the most, outside of course the Eagles and the Texans, I actually, I was, I'm not too sure if there's much separation between CJ Stroud and Bryce Young. So I
There's
did
not.
think that it was really good. I know a lot of people were kind of getting on the Texans, seeing as that you're a rebuilding team and you
Right.
traded as much as you trade to get the third pick, but
Yeah.
or third and fourth pick.
Yep.
Oh no, I'm sorry, second and third. But you get arguably the best quarterback in the draft, and you get
Yep.
arguably the best defensive player in the draft. And
100%. They
those
did get the best defensive player for sure. You could argue the Texans got the first and second best player in the draft.
yeah.
And there were a lot of big boards out there that supported that. I think they were both both top 5 players. So
Mhm.
you can't really deny what they've done. Or if you want to take a lot of the defensive end or defensive lineman presence over a quarterback in the draft, then I get that too. But the Texans, yeah, they absolutely went crazy. So did you know, with the way that the trade worked out, apparently, that because of course the Cardinals could be slated to be very bad next year. The Texans could be a
Mhm.
bad team as well. The Cardinals can very well have the first and second pick in the NFL draft, just walking in next year without even having to move for a trade and anything.
That's
And I said
incredible.
it. the Texans, they traded a 1, a 2, and a 3
Mhm.
to move up and get Will Anderson. And to me, that's worth it. You get maybe the best player, my best player in the draft, and
Mhm.
clearly a top 2, top 3 player to everyone. And a 2-time defensive player of the year in the SEC from Alabama as well. So it's kind of however you look at it. But yeah, the Texans, they pulled a fast one. They shocked the hell
Yeah.
out of me on draft night. That is the last thing I expect. And I don't know if anyone saw the team that picked at 2 to move right up to 3 and take another great
I'm
player.
not gonna lie to you. I thought my TV was messed up. I'm like, didn't they
Right.
just pick? Like, I was like, what? Am I
Yeah.
missing something here? And then
Right.
once they went through the details, it makes sense. I of course, I like everyone else was high on Will Anderson. I had him second. I think Jalen Carter was probably the best one in my opinion. If
Yeah.
outside of course the off the field issues and everything, I think he could arguably, if there wasn't, if we Bryce Young wasn't in the draft, if
Right.
CJ Stroud, I think he was good enough to be a top 2 or 3 pick. So
Oh, definitely.
the fact that he just fell to a 9 was just mind blowing to me.
Yep.
But yeah, a lot of my list is yours too. I did, of course, Steelers, Ravens. I like the Patriots. Some of the Patriots picks were big steals in my opinion, especially. And when we talk about losers, uh, we'll get there. But
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of my winners were on your list too, so I agree wholeheartedly with you.
Yeah, yeah. It's like I said, it was a really good, I feel like, just value positional draft for a lot of people. Like, yes, it feels like realistically, and it might sound weird to say this, just about everybody got a pretty good blue chip player. There were some questionable reaches, there were some questionable picks and whatnot. And as the draft went on, you were like, wow, that guy's falling, this guy's falling, he's going there, they're going here. And just watching how everything played out, it definitely took a couple hours to dig into. But when you just realize how many winners there actually were in the NFL draft, it is absolutely crazy.